video stream every morning at 560theanswer.com.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. We're coming to you live from Woodland Windows and Doors in Roselle, part of our AM 560 Signature Bank Business Tour. Happy to have you along. We'll talk to the principal of this concern at the top of the 8 o'clock hour. But now, in advance of our next guest, I wanted to tackle a topic we hadn't gotten to in the last few days, but it certainly bears on the 2020 election, and that's a case that invalidates Obamacare. Justice Department last week reversing itself and supporting a decision by a federal judge in Texas that would invalidate Obamacare, the lawsuit Texas v. Azar, brought by roughly 20 Republican state attorneys general led by Ken Paxton of Texas. And this is the concern that some, including Judge Napolitano, who you'll hear from, have with the politics of supporting this case before the court.
I want to switch gears now. Obamacare.
Sure.
Okay. There are GOP concerns about what happens if Obamacare is struck down. How big of a problem is this politically for Republicans?
Politically, for the Republicans, it's an enormous problem. Whatever you think of Obamacare, I happen to think it's unconstitutional. Forcing people to purchase a product, in my opinion, is beyond the constitutional authority that Congress has. The court got around that by saying, well, we're taxing them. So Congress can't order me to wear a red striped tie, but they can tax me if I don't. That's the theory under which Obamacare was upheld. The tax laws were changed under the Trump administration to remove the ability of the IRS to tax you for failure to get health insurance.
Right.
That's the hook on which this federal judge in Texas hung his hat for finding it unconstitutional. But if the unconstitutionality of it is upheld, what are the Republicans going to replace it with? You have 21 million people in the United States receiving government-subsidized health insurance as a result of Obamacare. You're going to take that away from them? It'll be politically catastrophic, even though I don't think it should have come in the first place.
I want to show you the...
It's a fascinating argument to me. I mean, I understand what Napolitano is saying, but it's also this sort of long-running joke of Republicans running on repeal and replace of Obamacare and then failing to do it when they had control of both chambers of Congress, and then desiring not to do it when the Supreme Court may intervene to undo what Justice Roberts did. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined again by Rich Lowry, who is the editor of National Review, Fox News contributor, and the author of the book Lincoln Unbound. Rich, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
What about this, the politics and the policy of Obamacare and the position that Napolitano and certainly some more establishmentarian Republicans on the Hill are taking on this case?
So I think, unfortunately, the case doesn't have any legal merit. I wish it did. I desperately want to get rid of Obamacare. But the idea that that the individual mandate that now doesn't have any sort of penalty is unconstitutional, and then you can use the unconstitutionality of the mandate to have a court toss out the entire law. It's just not going to happen. The Supreme Court is not going to do that. But I think Trump's impulse is correct. One, to desperately want to follow through on this promise, because it was a key promise not just that he made, that Republicans have made, as you alluded to, for years. And two, he's right to want the party to have an alternative. I mean, it's been at least 10 years that Republicans should have realized that this is a really going issue, and they need to have their alternative to what the Democrats are offering, and they still don't have one. And they're not going to have one anytime soon, because when Trump said this, everyone on the Hill told him, no, we're not going to do that. And now he's saying in a tweet this morning or last night that, well, it's going to be after the election, that they're going to come up with a plan sometime before the election and then pass it after the election. So that'd be better than having no plan at all. But one reason it's so hard to replace to repeal Obamacare is that there's no replacement, and the party really needs to agree on that.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. What's the plan? I mean, I watched Kellyanne Conway this weekend, her stammering around the question, because do they have a replacement or an idea or plan in place?
They're a bunch of conservative policy wonks that probably their probably about a half dozen plausible replacement plans out there, but there's no consensus among Republican politicians. And one reason for that is there are a lot of, once you get into the nitty-gritty of this and just don't say we want to repeal Obamacare, you get really difficult choices. And a lot of these plans depend on tax subsidies for people to buy their own insurance, and there's some conservatives who say, well, that's more spending, we can't have that, and there are various other tough issues. So, but you got to bite the bullet. And the Republican Party, I think Trump is right. It should be the party of health care. The problem is, like, when Trump, whenever he gets off kind of the Republican typical track, it's very hard because he doesn't have a robust, policy operation himself. He hasn't thought this stuff through. So when it's not just, cutting taxes and deregulating, and believe me, I support all that, but when it's a little different and it kind of gets to his appeal that he had to different kind of voters that's very important to double down on in 2020, there's kind of nothing there, and this is a great example of it. His instinct, we need to be for health care and for more people getting health insurance, is absolutely right, but there's just no substance to back it up yet.
Well, so you're right about the potential infirmities of the case, the severability issue, which you raise, also a standing issue in terms of the AGs being an injured party. But let me ask you this then. If that's true, if there's little chance that this would be picked up, then this would be overturned by the high court, then isn't saying this is bad politics?
Well, the problem is that now they're sort of branded as, okay, we're overturning Obamacare without anything to replace it, and I don't think that's a great position to be in. I'm all in favor of Part 1. Let's overturn Obamacare, but we need Part 2. And this is something Trump's been saying forever. I mean, right out the gate, when when he was elected and Republicans held Congress, they said, we're going to repeal Obamacare. And he said, well, that's good, but let's also replace it. And that ended up being, a key thing that sunk their effort because they couldn't agree on the replacement. And here we are, more than 2 years later, and there's still not a replacement. And, I mean, there desperately needs to be one. And you would think if the White House thinks it's so important that they would come up there with the plan, but they don't have the wherewithal to do it themselves. And then at Capitol Hill, they're all it's always like herding cats. So I fear we're going to be in the same position all the way through the 2020 election.
What about congressional Republicans' wherewithal on border security? Whether it is the cutting off financial aid to the Northern Triangle countries, whether it is even going so far as Trump sort of, threatened this week to shut down the southern border. But certainly the New York Times and other D.C. press corps outlets are reporting about the national emergency at the border while decrying Trump's declaration of a national emergency. This would seem to me an opportune time to do what Trump did and for congressional Republicans to speak with one voice on border security.
So there's no doubt there's a crisis at the border. It's been clear for a very long time, and anyone who denies it now is just an alternative universe. 76,000 apprehensions in February, highest number in 10 years, 100,000 in March. And the facilities are just absolutely overwhelmed. They're overtopped. They're completely inappropriate for the new class of migrants coming through, which are children and family units rather than single adults from Mexico. And Trump is kind of like Obamacare, we were just talking about. He's desperate to deal with this problem, but he doesn't have the means to do it. And the one thing that would immediately change everything is if Congress said, and a lot of people don't realize that this is the case, but we literally cannot take these unaccompanied minors coming from Central America and just turn them around in a very humane way, put them on a plane, and send them home the way we can with unaccompanied minors from Mexico because of a court ruling and a congressional enactment that had this unintended effect. So if Congress tomorrow said, yeah, you can do this, you can treat them the same way you treat minors from Mexico, immediately they wouldn't be getting in. And if Congress tightened up the asylum rules, which basically waive everyone into the country, even if they don't ultimately get asylum, we could cut this problem off immediately. We just wouldn't let the people in, and we'd send them back. And again, do it in like a really humane way. They deserve to be treated humanely. But Congress won't do that. And this isn't a Republican problem. This is a Nancy Pelosi problem. Everyone knows that this is the fix. They don't want to fix. They're happy to have the migrants streaming in. They're happy to have Trump look ineffectual on one of his key issues and have him, pulling out his hair, trying to figure out some way to deal with it without Congress. And he just can't. And you talk candidly to hardliners in the administration on this issue. I talked to a lot of them in February when I wrote a column about this, and they're just like, it's going to get worse. There's literally nothing we can do, and I fear that's true.
Yeah, they keep coming. What do you know about this border czar that they might appoint?
It's I don't know a lot. It's fine, I think, when you have a problem like this to appoint someone to really focus on it. But that surely be your DHS secretary, which he already has. And again, I'm just not sure what we're going to do. We lack the legal authority to turn these people around and to detain them, and that's the problem. And if Congress gave the administration the legal authority, again, this problem would be solved very quickly. But absent of that, it's just going to grind on and on and on. And closing the border, it's not a way to stop the migrants because they're not coming through the ports of entry that'd be closed. It's a way to pressure Mexico, and maybe there's something to be said for that. And maybe we can get some more out of Mexico just with this threat, because they're transiting through Mexico. But it's crazy to me. I wrote a column about this today that we're in effect now trying to depend on a foreign country to police our own border. We should do it. Congress should do it, not a foreign government.
I wanted to understand sort of the protocol among high-profile people when it comes to being on the speaking circuit, the campaign trail. You're a high-profile person. You do a lot of speaking, television appearances, and so forth. So when you're like at a big conservative gathering or supporting
I think
a
I know where this
particular
is going.
candidate for office, is it
Do I
customary?
smell anyone's hair?
Is it
what about rubbing
no
noses?
Eskimo kissing? I would think is Eskimo kissing a nice way to introduce yourself to women you don't know?
Would you do rub your noses?
It's so crazy. And, I don't think he's malicious when he does this sort of stuff. I think it's kind of overly fond, and weird. But there are going to be hundreds of stories like this. Hundreds. I mean, he did it at every single event.
It was never his intention, and also he believes he never did anything inappropriate. And if he did, he will listen respectfully to those who think he did.
Yeah,
you think that's going to get him out of it?
These will keep, they'll keep coming. I don't think I don't think any one of them is disqualifying. That's what we've heard so far. What would be disqualifying, and what I wonder is out there, it's sort of honest to goodness groping. Because so far, the hair smelling and the Eskimo kisses, it's way over familiar. It gets you reported to HR immediately if you did it in the workplace.
No, if anybody at our workplace did that, they'd be fired. I mean, in an
exactly.
instant, especially if they did it repeatedly. And Senator Dianne Feinstein released a statement saying he's a tactile person. Mm-hmm. He grabs you. He holds your arm. That kind of thing. That's it.
Yeah. But if there's really grabbing, other places, which we haven't heard yet, but
I wouldn't be surprised.
He gets one or two of those, and it's done. It might be done now. At first I was kind of dismissive of the Las Vegas allegation. There's some people who doubt whether it is true, and I was like, it's not that horrible, but just the accumulation of them could really be be problem. It's not going to stop. This is not going to stop.
I agree with one of your writers, Kyle Smith, who said that Biden is over. I found him to be a marginal candidate anyway, sort of a candidate of yesteryear, where the Democrat Socialist Party is. And this, particularly if it's going to be a drip, 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 just destroys any chance he has.
Yeah, you might very well be right, and that blows a big hole there, because I mean there are people who got out or didn't get in because Biden was getting in. Sherrod Brown didn't get in, and I mean he basically said he was in. Bloomberg didn't get in because of Biden. So it's just another indication. This Democratic race, we're just getting a little taste of it now, will be insane. We thought 16 on the Republican side was crazy. This will top it.
And let that be a lesson to you kids out there. You grab people intellectually. not
There
physically.
you go.
Yeah.
Nice,
All right.
public
I
service
do
announcement
intellectual
from Dan
Eskimo
Proft.
kisses.
That's
That's my
right.
thing.
You go.
All right. All right. Intellectual Eskimo kisser Rich Lowry. He's also the editor of National Review. Rich, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Always a pleasure. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560.